Given that its source material is a work of historical fiction, it can be difficult to parse out what parts of the Tattooist of Auschwitz are true to history and what parts were added for dramatic effect and narrative enhancement. Much of the real story of Lale Sokolov's time in Auschwitz cannot be corroborated by documentation, and given that the story is based on his own memories, it's possible that some of it was misremembered or embellished in his mind over time. However, there are a lot of details about the camp itself that can be verified. The ending of the Tattooist of Auschwitz provides some brief notes as context to the story spread out across 6 episodes, and several different authorities have researched Lale's story since he first spoke to Heather Morris back in 2003. The most prominent of which, the Auschwitz Memorial Research Center, has cast doubt on some important elements of the story. The show does update some elements from the novel that acts as its source material, the spelling of Lale's name, for example, but some of the inaccurate elements do carry over, typically for the sake of creating a more compelling story. The latrine murder scene was very unlikely. The randomness doesn't align with the Nazis' regimented protocols. Jonas Ney's Stefan Beretsky killing prisoners in the Tattooist of Auschwitz. One of the most brutal and shocking murders to take place on screen in the Tattooist of Auschwitz comes in the first episode, and it sets the tone for the cruelty of the camps right away for Jonah Hauerking's Lale. As he leaves the barracks to relieve himself in the middle of the night, he sees Nazi SS guard Stefan Beretsky, the man who will soon become his personal supervisor, shoot 3 prisoners seemingly at random while they use the latrine. The bodies fall, and Beretsky and his comrades simply continue to walk on by. The scene serves as an important moment for Lale, as it demonstrates why he and every other prisoner lived in fear every second of every day. As shocking as the scene is, it's very unlikely that it would have occurred in the real camps. The Nazis' extermination of prisoners was marked by brutal efficiency and protocol. Every prisoner was listed and accounted for at all times. The guards in charge of the camp were held accountable for each prisoner, and checked names off the list whenever someone was killed. A random killing like the one at the latrine violates those protocols, as those bodies would have needed to be accounted for and disposed of immediately. While it's an important scene in establishing the fear present in the camp for Lale and Gita, it likely never occurred. 8. Beretsky may not have been Lale's supervisor. There is no record of their close working relationship. Jonas Ney as Stefan Beretsky and Jonah Hauerking as Lale Sokolov in the Tattooist of Auschwitz. Stefan Beretsky was a Real Guard at the camp, and he was one of the individuals tried and sentenced at the Frankfurt Auschwitz trials years after Auschwitz was liberated. However, there seems to be no documentation that he was ever directly involved with Lale Sokolov, or as his camp papers said at the time, Ludwig Eisenberg. It is known that Beretsky worked in Auschwitz I in Birkenau, the women's camp, which is how he comes in contact with Gita in the show. Documentation and photographic evidence place Beretsky at the ramp for incoming prisoners, and it's known that he frequented the area. That would certainly put him in close proximity with a tattooist like Lale who worked right in that area, and it's certainly possible that they established a close relationship, as Lale described to Heather Morris. However, Lale's depiction of Beretsky as his personal supervisor can't be verified.